Hello and welcome to another episode of The Hollywood Knitter. My name is Allison and I will be your host today for this podcast. I'm recording on Wednesday, February 5th from my home in Los Angeles, California. I am recording from my couch today. I actually purchased a podcast light, which I'd never had before. It's a kind of nifty setup, but what it does is it allows me to film later in the day instead of having to wait for great natural light. And I can kind of record from anywhere. So I'm going to record from my house today. Excuse me. I have my cat next to me. She is requiring some love because I'm home and that requires all the love. But I have wanted to get a podcast out. It's been about a month since my last one, so I failed utterly already on my goal to try to record more often. And part of that is I've just been really busy. Work has kicked up and I'm working longer hours and working my regular day off. And that's really cut into my ability to podcast because I usually podcast on my day off. So I decided today I wanted to get home after work and sit down and talk to you guys and kind of show you what I've been up to and talk about some upcoming knits and basically just share. So let's get into the FOs, shall we? I have two FOs since we last talked. This first one is the Flores Socks by Joji Locatelli. And this was a pattern that came out right at Christmas. It's a cute little shorty sock with a lace pattern on top. And she actually created this pattern and donated all the proceeds to the knitting group that she works with. And so it came out right before Christmas and I was like, well, this is like the perfect kind of Christmas cast on because it is in the spirit of Christmas. She was giving everything. And I normally wouldn't have necessarily bought this because it's a fairly simplistic pattern, sock pattern, and I'm a prolific sock knitter, but I wanted to support, and so I cast on December 24th, and I finished on January 17th, and these are shorties for me, and the yarn is Wandering Wool, excuse me as I look at my notes, Wandering Wool Ossable Sock, which is an 80-10-10, and it's knitting in the Nashville Night, and this was the yarn I picked up at SSK, which is the Super Summer Knit Together that I last attended in 2014. And I had this yarn already caked up because I was going to use it for another pair of socks that I just wasn't feeling. And so I ended up ripping them out. So it was all caked and ready to go. And so I do have a pair of them, but I only brought a sock blocker for one. So this used about, I don't know, 50 grams or so, which is pretty typical, probably a little less. I'm not sure. I'm sure I measured it, but just followed toe up, simple, easy. Joji writes wonderful patterns, so if you are not a sock knitter, this is a cute little sock pattern to go with. And I'm happy to have another pair of shorties. I'm really enjoying and wearing a lot of my shorty socks. So I foresee myself making yet even a few more for myself. The second project I finished was a big shawl project, and this was the first project I had in my Make 9, and this is the Upward Shawl by Jan Hook. It is a paid for pattern, very kind of different. So it has this kind of color work, not color work, it'd be more similar to like intarsia kind of border all the way down and kind of switches between the two. And I use this yarn right here is, what is it? Marigold Jen BFL nylon, and this is her this is her Sidewalk Chalk. The orange is hers and the tangerine Speedo. And then I contrasted for the second part of the shawl. This is Bad Amy Alpaca Merino Sock and Lemongrass, and this was a skein I got for backing a Kickstarter a few years ago. So it's kind of hard. Let me back up, kind of see. It's a triangular shawl. You start from here and you knit down, maintaining everything, and you kind of just, you knit from here and all the way to the back, and then this kind of long edge is what makes that second triangle edge. And I'm really happy with it. I really like this kind of intarsia border. So it's kind of, you knit and you drop and then you knit the orange. And so you have floats on the other side because you're carrying the main color. And I really liked how the directions she gave to pick up the floats, which are probably the best kind of directions I've seen. And you can see it looks really great in like picking up the floats on the back. So I'm really pleased because it was really easy. She did 2 techniques for picking up. One was as I was knitting, I was like trapping the yarn I was carrying, which I'd done before, but I hadn't seen the instructions as well done in this. And then on the way back, you're kind of creating a float. And then as you knit back the other way, you pick those floats up. So you're not having to trap the floats on the same one you're floating on. You kind of trap them on the way back. So I really enjoyed the techniques I learned in this. I think that's something I can use for when I actually do more color work. It was really neat. I love kind of the contrasty colors. This kind of, here, I'll kind of put it on. This green and the orange. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it or not. I have a lot of shawls right now that aren't necessarily in my current rotation, but I'm tempted. So I'm going to put this initially into my box, and then we'll see what we end up doing. And it ends up being a pretty big shawl. I think mine ended up being 76 inches in the wingspan, and then the depth is about 34 inches. So again, yeah, this is Upwards by Jenna Hook, or Huck. I'm saying it wrong, I'm sure. And it used pretty much it used the full color of this kind of brownish multicolored, a full skein of about 450 yards. And then the green, I used about half a skein, so like another 320 yards. And then the orange, the contrast, I actually had a half a skein, and I only used about 80 yards of it. So I used, a third of it roughly, to kind of do all of that. But I was happy. These were all yarns that were in my stash. I think the oldest one was from they were both from 2015, all from 2015. These Marigold Gems were actually a gift to me in 2015 from my friend Michelle Happy to Run. So I was happy to finally get to use them. They're beautiful. I like them. I haven't been wearing shawls lately, so I kind of need to wear more shawls. It's actually kind of chilly in LA today, so I'm wearing a sweater, which I'm blanking. Let me pause it. Let me get which sweater I'm wearing. The sweater is Sea Salt by Laura Ayler, and I knit it in 2017 out of Mad Tosh DK. Oh, excuse me. I'll stand up a little bit. Oh, that's horrible. Anyways, yeah, so it's a sweater day in LA, which is nice. It was a little chilly, and I was going into the office. I don't normally wear my knits to work because I work a lot in the field, and I don't want them to get snagged, or like when I wear my safety vest, it has Velcro and things like that. But I was going into some meetings in the office today, so I thought it would be safe to wear a sweater, and it was very comfortable. So those are all my whips. My works in progress, I'm going to show my big work in progress. As you may remember, I have been working on this linen stitch shawl for, since 2016, I think, with my sock scraps. And I've committed this year to finishing it. It's been on the needles too long. So I have been pretty diligently working on it during the month of January, and I got 3.5 inches. This brings me to kind of show. Here's my one edge. This pink marker is where I started at the beginning of the year, and I made it all the way up to this marker right here, which is a little hard to see because it fits in. But that brings me up to 54 inches roughly, and I'm going for 72. So I am on schedule, I think, to finish this roughly in the summer, which is when I want to finish it. And this is just linen stitch. I do the linen stitch across and then push it back and start on the other side, and I'm just knotting and fringing the ends. You can see some of them are already cut, and then this is going to be a lap blanket for me, and I'm just randomly sock yarn, all different colors, multicolored solids, yeah, different kind of bases. Most of them are probably a merino nylon blend, but there's probably some 100% wool, some superwash wool, whatever I have, scraps. And this was from my projects, and I've also just picked up little balls at various knitting retreats I've got of little little bits. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm continuing to work on it, and I hope that I'll have it to show you, have progress to show you every month on it till I finish it. I love working on it right now because it is a little chilly in LA, and so I'm actually able to snuggle under it as I knit on it, which is great. The other project I've been working on is just a pair of socks. I passed on these socks. They're for my boyfriend, and I cast on when we went to Star Wars. And this was yarn I actually picked up in Stitches SoCal in November for him. And it's Earth Unique socks, and they come pre-balled in like 2 separate balls. And this is the first sock. And I started toe up going. I kind of just love, you know, who doesn't love multicolored? And I have about this much left. So I'll probably be able to make them roughly a little longer on the foot as they are tall. And these are for, as I said, the boyfriend. So I knit to like 10 and a half. But I've gotten a fair amount. This is my purse knitting, so some weeks I get a lot done, some I don't. The only thing I do have to say is I started this at the theater, or right before I went to the theater. I did the toe, and I was hoping to be able to knit in the theater, but it ends up, it was a little too splitty for me. I noticed I wasn't fully picking up. Like I have to be able to look down and make sure I got all the plies. So that doesn't really make it perfect movie theater knitting. So I probably knit 1/2 inch on that movie, and then I had to stop. One, because I think I was feeling like I wasn't catching all the plies, and then I had dropped a stitch, and I was not going to be picking it up while I was watching Star Wars. So sadly, it was not the perfect movie knitting, and I did not get as much done. But I'm glad it's my first knitting, and as I said, it just continues to live in my Nomadic Yarns sock cube, Halloween sock cube, because Halloween is all year round love. And that is all I've been working on. I've been relatively monogamous, which is why I got that shawl done. I got a lot of it done when I was on vacation. I got a lot of knitting while I was visiting a friend, and I've been waiting to cast on for my next project, which is going to be my Make 9. It's going to be a fingering weight sweater. And that was one of the reasons I needed to sit down and podcast, because I wanted to kind of show you my yarns before I take them up. So if you're not familiar with the Spectre sweater, it is sort of a gradient sweater by Joji Locatelli. It came out, I don't know, maybe a year ago, maybe a little less. I love it. There's a lot of projects. I think there's almost at least 800 projects, I think maybe a little more. And I wanted to use this as a stash buster, meaning I wanted to use skeins that I have in my stash. So I went stash diving, and I came up with these. Now, I need to use, yardage wise, I'm going to need roughly about 1,900 yards. So that is five skeins. And the one she does, she actually recommends, you know, one of the colors to have 2, but I didn't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to use 5 colors of yarn, or 5 different yarns, I should say. And these are kind of, well, that's kind of, anyways, here's my yarns. I'm going to start off with this at the top is the light one, and this is Invictus Yarn, Master of My Feet, and her Trick or Treat colorway. It's a great kind of white speckled. I'm hesitating, but I think this is going to be my next one, which is Queen City Yarns, or Bruce City Yarns rather. It's a Phyllis Leo, and it's kind of an orange, and this definitely goes into this. I do like that. But it's a little too much contrast. I'm wondering if this is going to really stand out in my sweater, like your eye is going to be drawn to it, but I'm going to do it anyways, because again, I don't want to buy another skein. Then I'm going into Queen City Yarns, and this is the No Dust sock, and So Much Drama. Then I'm going to go into this one, which has the grays, and then it's got the pops of the orange and red, and this is Nomad Sock from Black Hat Fibers. And then I'm going to end up with this, which is Show Me Your Yarns, and what color is it? Bois d'Arc. So, I think it's going to go really well. I'm really happy. And when as I was selecting yarns, I kind of went back and forth. I originally had some other colors in here, But one, I went back and I said, you know what? I want them all to be the same base. One of the ones I had originally had in there was 100% superwash versus these are all a combination of merino, nylon, most 80-20, but I think I have one that's 75-25. I wanted them to be the same. There was also one in there that might have been 80-10-10, so I had the 10% cashmere, and I didn't want the slightly fuzzier yarn. So when I kind of made that restriction that I wanted them to be all the same yarn weight, that's kind of how I came up with this kind of look. So, super excited. I am, as I said, gonna have to make some mods because I'm using 5 colors, and there's some people who've done that, so I'm going to follow their notes. And then in addition, you can kind of see up here, one of the things that I don't like is necks that come up right here. As I just did my last sweater and it was too high. I don't like anything feeling like it's choking me. So I am going to make a modification to not have quite as much height and to maybe widen this neckline. So I have some notes on that, and how I'm going to do that is basically I'm just not going to cast on as many stitches here, and then, or I'm going to cast on more stitches rather, and then not do quite as much here. I'm going to shorten it by about 1 inch, and then increase and get to the numbers and be able to follow down. She has a cool kind of, it's hard to see in this picture, but she has a kind of a cool bud detail that's right here in the white before it goes down into this kind of reverse rib down here. Definitely hard to see in this picture. I might carry that motif in the bottom, but I'll decide when I get down there. And my plan is to have full sleeves. And yeah. So I'm going to be caking up and swatching for it hopefully this week, and then starting it this weekend and getting that done. My goal is to get this done by the end of March, so I have roughly 2 months, and I think it will be doable. So that's my next project. And as I said, I'm trying to be monogamous, so I'm going to try to do this big project and then my socks I always have on. I might actually also cast on for a hat or two. I have 1 or 2 hat patterns that are also in my Make 9. They might be kind of good palette cleanser if I need to work on something small in between. Whew, that's a lot. Excuse me. I'm going to crack again. Diet Coke, my drink of choice. So that's what I have going on in my knitting. What else has been going on in my life? So since I talked to you last, I did a trip out to Cleveland. I went and visited my girlfriend, my longest friend. We have been best friends since we were in high school. So she lives out in Cleveland with her family and my godson. So I went out on a long weekend I have, and going to the Midwest in January is not ideal, especially when you're a SoCal girl and cold is not your thing. But it just happened to be a weekend that was good and free for me. I've been trying to kind of visit her since, I don't know, last September. So I just picked it. It was a 3-day weekend for me. I didn't have to take a lot of time off work. And luckily I flew out there and kind of squeaked in before a snowstorm because I went through Minneapolis. But it was funny. I was initially concerned. So they had sent, there was a storm warning, and they said, do you want to change your ticket? And I had debated kind of maybe trying to go through a different city than Minneapolis, but ultimately I was looking at the time and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to risk it. And got there, fine. Got on the next plane and the snow started falling like as we were kind of going. Luckily all they had to do was de-ice, and then we were able to take off a little delayed and made it into Cleveland. In Cleveland, though, then it was kind of a crappy weekend because it was cold and there was snow and things like that. So we ended up just hanging out all weekend at the house, which was perfectly fine with me. I was going to see her and my godson and her husband, of course. So we just hung out all weekend. So I got a lot of knitting done, like just watching movies and chilling out and watching them try to potty train the 3-year-olds, which more power to all your parents. But it was a lot of fun. And so I was there from Friday night through Monday, and then I flew back. And I worked a lot on my shawl on that. So that was kind of that. Other than that, I've been in between when I'm not working, I've been doing my normal, checking out television, and what have I been watching? I've been trying to watch a lot of the Oscar-nominated movies, all the ones I could without necessarily paying. So, like, I watched on the plane, because planes are perfect for knitting time. I watched The Farewell, which is the Awkwafina not coming of age movie about her family. Her grandmother is being diagnosed with cancer, and apparently this is very common in Asian culture where you don't tell the person that they're sick. And so it was about her going to visit, all the family going to visit, and kind of the ups and downs, and it was very well done. Very well done. Highly recommend you see The Farewell. She is mostly known as a comedic actress, but this was really kind of more of a serious role, which I really enjoyed. And then I just enjoy the aspect of watching how families in other cultures work. So although this was the idea of not telling a family member that they were severely sick was an anathema to me, I very much sort of understood by the end of the movie why it kind of exists in their culture, why they do that. And I thought it was just very well done. I also watched, let me see, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on the plane. That is the Quentin Tarantino movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, Margot Robbie, and Brad Pitt. And it was okay. I'm not a Tarantino fan in general. The story was good. Visually, it was beautiful. Set in Los Angeles, which I always love. But in general, it was just okay. I'm not the biggest Tarantino fan. And although Brad Pitt is lovely to look at, it wasn't enough to bring it up to higher than just okay in my mind. I also saw The Marriage Story on Netflix. That was very well done. Another kind of really tough movie with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. Of at least, I think Scarlett's been nominated. Adam had been nominated, I think, for the Golden Globe. I'm not sure if he got an Oscar nom. But about basically a couple whose marriage is falling apart and they have a child, and kind of how they get through that, the divorce, and how they basically create their new family and how that dynamic works. And it seemed very real to me, which was very, and it was very well acted, and it was definitely worth a watch. It's on Netflix, called The Marriage Story. We also watched The Irishman. That was not my choice. Also on Netflix. It is the current kind of Scorsese flick with Pacino and Pesci and some more old men. I kind of zoned in and out of that, honestly. It's a 3.5-hour movie, which I guess they could do because they put it on Netflix. And they use this technique where the actors play themselves from younger to older. And they used a lot of effects to kind of de-age them. And it was a little off for me. But the acting is impeccable. All those men are wonderful actors. But the story was like another mob story, families, and it's not my thing in general. I could appreciate it for what it was, but I honestly, I zoned in. Like, I watched the beginning, I was knitting, then I started watching some podcasts and sort of knitting and watching it a little bit until I came back towards the end and I started watching it a little more. But that's The Irishman. If you're into that kind of movie, it's very well done if you can make it through the 3.5 hours. I actually talked to some of my coworkers about it, and they said they didn't watch it all in one sitting. We did, but I could see if you just watch like an hour at a time and kind of get through it. Yeah, so that's what I've watched so far. There's a lot of other movies that I have like in my queue on Netflix that hopefully I'll get out when the DVDs, but I'm probably not going to be able to see them before the Oscars next weekend. Also been watching a new show on HBO. And this was not a show I had heard of. My boyfriend is notorious for just choosing something. He'll go into Netflix or HBO or whatever and just pick on a show that shows up. So that's how we started watching The Outsider, which I hadn't heard, but it's based on a Stephen King novel. And the first episode was excellent. And it starts out with kind of a horrendous crime that Jason Bateman is accused of doing, and yet the evidence show that he was also in another place. So how could this person be in two places at once? And that's kind of roughly the premise. And it's Stephen King. So as we're 5 episodes into it, and it's got like a supernatural element, but it's just extremely well done. It's very tense as you watch it, and you're just sort of, what's going to happen next? Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. There's not a lot of light moments in it at all. It's very dark, very tense. Even the way the cinematography is, it's kind of very dark. It kind of all does this tone, but it is really well done. Jason Bateman was excellent in it. I was looking at it going, wow, that should get nominated for, because it's going to be I think it's going to be based on a book, so it's going to be a one-time series, like a mini series, and I'm hoping he gets nominated next year because he was really good. And he directed like the first episode, so he like directed himself, and I think he's an executive producer, and he's just awesome. So that's what we're doing, watching right now. We're waiting to watch. We're going to start watching Picard, but we haven't yet. Super excited about that, and there's just so much out there to watch. And so I've also been watching kind of as background, not fluff, but kind of a background show. I've been watching the Heartstrings anthology on Netflix, which was done by Dolly Parton. So each of the vignettes, each episode is based on her song, and it's kind of like a mini story. And it's good. There was one that was really excellent about a wedding, and the whole theme was, love is love, no matter who you are. And it had some great characters, and it involved basically how no matter what, your family, and you can't change who you are, and hopefully your family can accept you. And it was just a spouse that love is important. So it is definitely not highbrow, but it is enjoyable, and I've been enjoying watching it. Yeah. Book-wise, I'm continuing to listen to my Wheel of Time series, slowly but surely. Keeping up on podcasts has been taking some time. I'm listening at the recommendation of my friend Holly. I'm listening to the Happiness Lab, which is a great little podcast about how we think about happiness, how we can create happiness, how we can be happier people. And a lot of it is mental, I'm slowly making my way through it and sort of listening to every episode and sort of just really thinking about it and ruminating, because one of my goals was just to be happier this year, just to be happier every year. And it's a great, so it's called the Happiness Lab, and it's based on a course that's taught, I can't remember, Yale, I think maybe. And so it's like one of the most popular courses for the college students, and she turned it into a podcast. So it's like 12 episodes, and each one's like 35 minutes, and the teacher narrates it, and she has interviews, and she kind of explains different things, and it's all based in psychology, and it's worth a listen if you're interested in that kind of topic. Other than that, I've just been continuing to listen to my knitting podcast, as well as the Few Non-Knitting, which is now the Happiness Lab, and I listen to Dak Shepard, Armchair Expert, as well as Justin Long, which they both interview mainly celebrities, but also some occasional smart people, as they like to say, and those are both worth listens. Yeah. So I'm gearing up for some travel. So next weekend, so the Valentine's Day weekend, we are going, the boyfriend and I, we are going to Mexico to see a soccer game in Leon. This is the local LA soccer team that that he has season tickets to, that I occasionally go to games. They are in a international kind of tournament, the CONCACAF, which is, I think, South America, Central America. It's like the best teams of those different leagues. And since LAFC was one of the best teams, they were invited, and they were in the first round paired up with Leon. So they play one game in Leon, Mexico, and then they come back to the US and they play one game here. So we are going to that game. We are flying out on Saturday the 15th, and we're going to fly into Leon, and then we're going to spend 2 days in Guanajuato, Mexico, which is this beautiful, picturesque city in Mexico, and spend 2 nights there, and then go to Leon, and watch the game, which is on Tuesday night, and then we fly back on a Wednesday. Then I have a day and a half of work, a full day Thursday, and then a half day on Friday, and then I am flying out to Stitches West. So I will be at Stitches West Friday, probably afternoon, late afternoon, Saturday, and then I fly back on Sunday. So looking forward to seeing all of my friends at Stitches West. I will be at the podcaster meetup on Saturday. It is in the bar at the Hilton, and it's hosted by the Yarniacs and the Two Knit Lick Chicks. And it's a very cash thing. Everyone just comes and sits around and knits and chats. And so I'm really looking forward to that. For Stitches West, I don't really have any shopping I want to do. As I said, I'm really trying to knit down for my stash. So I'm trying to limit the new stash that comes in. I say that now. We'll see. There are one or two things that I'm potentially going to look for. The boyfriend has requested LA soccer socks, which would be his team, LAFC, which are black and gold. So I'm going to see maybe if I can find some cool black and gold yarn so I can make him some socks for that. But other than that, I'm not shopping. I have my sweater quantities. I have all my projects for this year planned. So I'm not going with a shopping list per se. But if one or two skeins catch my eye, I'm sure I will come home with them. Then for March, I have to buckle down and get a lot of work done before I take almost 3 weeks off in April. So I'm going to be flying to Boston on a red eye for April 1st, and I'm going to see my new niece for just like a Wednesday, and then on Thursday my brother and I fly out from Boston to Casablanca, where we will be on a tour for 2 weeks through Morocco. So super excited about that. So that's 2 weeks, then I fly back like on a Saturday and have a day or so to recover from all the crazy jet lag before I head back to work. And then the next things that I have on the books are Zombie Apocalypse in June and the San Diego Comic-Con in July. Yeah, probably gonna have some more travel, but that's what is on my travel agenda, and I'm super excited. Coming up with travel knitting, I think I'm going to just be bringing my socks, and that's why I think I might also bring a hat for Mexico. I may bring the start of the sweater. We'll see how far along. I don't think I'll be that far along, so I think I probably could get away with just bringing 2 of the skeins, the first 2 colors, and if I get through that, that would be awesome. But I need to get far enough along in the pattern that it is something that I'm not super having to knit on, though the travel to Lyon direct, it is, I don't know, 3.5, 4 hours. However, we're gonna be flying via Dallas Fort Worth, so we fly there and then we have like a 2-hour layover each way, and then into Mexico. So yeah, so that is what's going on with me. I hope that everybody is having a wonderful January. I guess technically we're in February. Oh yeah, time flies. It is flying. 2020 is starting off with a bang, and it is going fast. So that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed watching my podcast. If you do, leave a thumbs up. Yeah, just so I know that you're doing. I think one of the things I will do, and I'll open a thread after probably my next episode, which probably will be after Stitches West. I'm going to probably buy a skein or 2 or some kind of special prize that I'm going to give away for Stitches West. So I'll probably open that up afterwards once I see what kind of awesomeness. I love kind of doing that when I don't really want to buy yarn for myself, because it still satisfies my urge to buy something and support someone without bringing that yarn into my stash. So I think I will definitely be doing that. Anyways, that's all I got. So that's a wrap from Hollywood. Oh, wait, stop. If you're looking for me, you can find me on Ravelry or Instagram as Allison1031. There. Now that's a wrap from Hollywood, where fantasy meets fiber and dreams are knit. Bye, everybody.